morning, dear laddies! My name is Jacksepticeye, and welcome to the Garten of Banban!
Welcome to Garten of Banban.
Boys, welcome to Garten of Banban. Pretty sure this is Poppy Playtime 2.0.
Huh. Funny you should say that. Garten of Banban. If you were anywhere on the internet in 2023, you probably heard this name. Garten of Banban was released on January 6th, 2023 as the newest addition to the indie/mascot horror genre. It followed in the likes of Five Nights at Freddy's, Bendy and the Ink Machine, and Poppy Playtime, which we'll talk about in a second. These games are now modern staples of the indie horror genre and are well respected amongst fans. Banban, however, is most certainly not. Now, before I get into all this, I'd like to address one thing. This is not an attack on the Euphoric brothers, the devs behind Banban, in any way. There have been many times on the internet when devs have been harassed for the games they've put out, and I would like to make it clear that I'm not trying to harass the Euphoric brothers, and neither should you. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the video. When Garten of Banban released, it was met with some constructive criticism, to say the least. People did not like Banban, some even calling it the final nail in the coffin for mascot horror, and others calling it a lazy cash grab. And to be honest, it's easy to see why. The gameplay for the first chapter of Garten of Banban goes as follows. Upon loading into the game, you're met with the entrance to Banban's kindergarten. You make your way into a side room where you unlock the main mechanic of the game, the drone, which we will talk about later. Using the main mechanic, you enter a large area where the main antagonist of the game is teased. You solve a couple of puzzles before being chased by said antagonist, which then ends with them falling to their supposed death, only for them to return later in a sequel. You enter the final room of the game where a new character is teased, thought to be the antagonist of the next game, but isn't. Now, keeping that in mind, let me summarize to you the gameplay for the first chapter of Poppy Playtime. Upon loading into the game, you're met with the entrance to Playtime Co. You make your way into a side room where you unlock the main mechanic of the game, the grab pack. Using the main mechanic, you enter a large area where the main antagonist of the game is teased. You solve a couple of puzzles before being chased by said antagonist, which ends up with them falling to their supposed death, only for them to return later in a sequel. You enter the final room of the game where a new character is teased, thought to be the antagonist of the next game, but isn't. Sounds a little similar, doesn't it? But the similarities don't end there, because just 2 months later, Garten of Banban 2 released, and while its similarities are a bit less egregious, they are still there. Banban 2 starts with the almost immediate aftermath of Banban 1. After spawning in, you make your way to a hub-like area with 3 different areas branching off, each serving as a different little part of the game. There, you're introduced to the main spider-like antagonist of the game, Nab Nab.
Y'all, Nab Nab is Banban backwards.
Lore!
Real creative there, developers. Along with that, you meet Banban himself, who disguises as a friendly character.
Oh, thank God. I'm so glad you're here. I thought this was the end. I was looking around and walked into the security room. Then the door closed behind me and I've been stuck inside since. It needs a light blue key card to open, but I don't have it. I know why you're here and I can help you, but you've got to get me out of here.
But ultimately betrays you.
3 birds with 1 stone. I get all of your key cards, I get the perfect specimen, and I don't have to deal with that thing down there. And it's all thanks to you. Oh, come on. I didn't hit you that hard. Or maybe I did. Either way, it's best you take a nap while I prepare for our little surgery.
Now for Poppy. Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 starts with the almost immediate aftermath of Chapter 1. After spawning in, you make your way to the game station, a hub-like area with 3 different minigame areas branching off, each serving as a different part of the game. On your way, you're introduced to the main spider-like antagonist of the chapter, Mommy Longlegs. Along with that, you meet Poppy, who acts as a friendly character.
I wanted to thank you for freeing me. I was stuck in there for so long. Thank you. I'd like to pay you back. There's a train station nearby. It needs a as you get on up here.
but ultimately betrays you.
I was so scared she'd put me back in that case. But you saved me. You are perfect. Too perfect to lose. I'm sorry. I can't let you leave.
You know, I'll give the developers a bit of credit here. They at least tried to make the similarities a bit less obvious. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering, what about Banban 3 and Poppy Chapter 3? Well, believe it or not, Banban 3, 4, and 6 all released before Poppy Chapter 3, so any similarities there would be coincidental. Now, the whole point of this video isn't to just riff on Banban and the Euphoric brothers for copying Poppy, it's to riff on them for a bunch of other things, but that's besides the point. In fact, Poppy has had its slew of controversies as well, with its NFTs and overambitious Chapter 4. And yes, you heard me right. After the release of the first chapter of Poppy Playtime, the devs released several digital NFTs with exclusive lore. Yup, they locked lore behind a paywall. But they bounced back from that and came back stronger. The devs managed to put out the fires that the NFTs caused, and after the controversy, Poppy Chapter 2 released, a game that, while might not be the favorite of the franchise, is still well regarded and liked amongst fans. Now, for Chapter 4, at the time of recording, Chapter 5 has yet to be announced, so we'll have to wait and see if it improves upon Chapter 4. Now, Poppy isn't the only horror franchise to be met with controversy. FNAF was under hot water as well when the biggest game in the series, Security Breach, was released for its...
Hey guys!
You know, to say buggy is kind of an understatement.
Please. Oh my god, no! Not like this. Not like this. Please. Give me in. Friday! Friday!
But a year and a half later, and after many patches to the game, the DLC for Security Breach Ruin released. And while it's also not a perfect game, it fixed a lot of the issues that people had with Security Breach and was a much better and scarier experience.
I don't mean to be because it's so well, like, it's great. I just wanted just that. I love that.
In some aspects, at least. Both Poppy and FNAF have had their slew of controversies in the past, but they've persevered through them and have come back better. After the NFTs came Chapter 2, and after Security Breach's release came Ruin and Secret of the Mimic. Whereas the Euphoric brothers, they're still charging $5 to $10 for games that can be beaten in under an hour. But all of this, everything I've just talked about, is far from the worst of this game franchise and its devs. Alright, time to talk about the drone. Usually, when it comes to making a unique gameplay mechanic, you want it to meet the following criteria. It should be easy to understand, and it should be fun to use. The Garten of Banban drone fits neither of these criteria. The drone is confusing to use.
Go there. You're not going to do it. You're going to smash into everything else along the way. We'll get there. Don't you worry about it, folks. Don't you worry about it. Can you not actually go in there? Is it the yellow glass? Is that what's happening? Should I smash the yellow glass with all these chairs? Probably could just use a key card to take away the glass, huh? I'm confused. Didn't you tell me that exact thing wasn't possible? Did I misread a prompt? Because this thing was even like, no, you can't do that, so... How did I smash the glass? How did I do that?
And it is not fun.
Okay, you go there. Uh-huh. It's not where I wanted you to go, but cool. Over there. Nice, now come over here.
Get there eventually, folks. Don't you worry. Oh, don't you worry.
72 hours later.
I forgot I can just right-click. I forgot that I can right-click! I forgot that I can just teleport it into the room!
If you've never played or seen a playthrough of Garten of Banban, let me explain to you how the drone works. The drone has two simple controls, one simple function, and one constraint. By left-clicking with the mouse, the drone will fly to wherever you left-clicked. By right-clicking with the mouse, the drone will teleport to the room you were in for convenience. It would take so long if you had to manually bring the drone everywhere, something that originally the Euphoric brothers wouldn't have wanted. However, I wouldn't put it past the modern-day brothers. But that's something we'll talk about later. The drone's main function is to hit the giant red buttons plastered all around the walls of the environment, which will open doors, or, in the cases I'll talk about in a second, activate other buttons. The drone also cannot be directed onto yellow glass, which, since the game does a terrible job of explaining this properly...
I'm confused. Didn't you tell me that exact thing wasn't possible? Did I misread a prompt?
I'll do it better. You are unable to left-click on yellow glass. Instead, you must go behind wherever the glass is and left-click there, causing the drone to fly into the glass and break it. This all sounds simple enough, right? Wrong. The drone is absolutely f***ing stupid. It will constantly hit corners, get stuck on walls, or even just barely stop in front of buttons because you clicked in front of the button and not on it. I'd be willing to bet that the Euphoric brothers made this drone as tedious to use as possible just so it would pad out the game's playtime by a couple of minutes. But once again, that's something we'll talk about later. Because there is another annoying gameplay trope that the Euphoric brothers have become absolutely obsessed with. Button chaining. The first time you either played or watched someone play the first Garten of Banban, you probably didn't notice it, but once you do, almost every puzzle in this game series kind of starts to fall apart. Button chaining is the act of pressing a button, which activates another button, which activates another button, which activates a door, give or take however many buttons are in the button chain. The very first time you use the drone in Banban is actually a 2-button button chain. You just probably didn't notice it. You press a button to open a door. The first Banban game has 3 button chains, the one I just described, one to get the egg out of the slide, and one to activate the final elevator. These button chains are all just 2 or 3 buttons, but later in the games, they can reach upwards of 6. Enter Garten of Banban 6. About an hour or so into the game, you enter this little courtyard area, where you need to open a door to get to the next room. In order to do this, you need to press a button. To press a button, 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 to open a door. In case you are unable to count or your brain melted from the amount of times I just said button, that is a 9-button button chain. This takes roughly 3 minutes to do if you know what you're doing. But why? You might ask, why would the devs make you do all of this when you could just press one button and be done? And the answer to that is that it takes longer. And for the third time, we will talk about that later. Alright, this part of the video requires a bit of context for those who aren't 3D modelers or game devs like myself. Anytime you see a 3D object in a video game, that is a 3D model. Every model is made up of little triangles, which are known as polygons in the 3D modeling world, and is how I will be referring to them. 3D models with lots of polygons have a larger file size and take up more power from your device, causing a game to run slower. Because of this, game developers and 3D modelers try to make their models have as few polygons as possible. This is actually where the term low poly comes from. Going onto websites like Sketchfab or asset stores like the Unity Asset Store, you'll find lots of assets that say they are low poly. This just means that they have a low amount of polygons and have a more geometric look that actually looks really nice. Since these objects have such a low poly count, they barely take up any processing power from your device, leading to lots of developers using them in their games. Usually, when you have a model that is present for basically the entirety of a game's runtime, you would want that model to have a lower poly count so that the game runs better. Now, keeping that in mind, we're going to play a little game of who's got the higher poly count. Is it A, the entirety of Super Mario 64? The entire game? Or is it B, the drone remote from Garten of Banban? Make your guesses now. If you guessed A, then you would be incorrect. Yes, you heard me right. Incorrect. This little drone remote, which should be no more than like 900 polygons, 12 for the box, 250 or so for the button, and like 500 for the antenna at max, has more polygons than the entirety of Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 has 15 main levels with 3 boss levels. Each level has about 1,200 polygons, and Mario himself is 788 polygons. So with some quick math and a bit of rounding, the game is about 22,400 polygons, which is quite low. The Garten of Banban drone remote has, drumroll please, 184,332 polygons. That is over 8 times the amount of polygons in Super Mario 64. And that's just for the remote, which is on screen the entire game. Why? Here's what the remote looks like in Blender. You see each of those black dots? That's a vertice for one of the polygons. The first Garten of Banban needs 4 gigabytes of RAM to install. 4 gigabytes! The game can be beaten in under 15 minutes, and it's 4 gigabytes! For context, my game, Neon, in its current state, which is not optimized at all, takes around 25 minutes to beat and is about half a gigabyte, and that's without optimization. Banban can be beaten in half the time, and it's 4 times the storage. And it's not just the drone, the character models are just as bad. I could barely even record B-roll for this video because the game kept crashing. That's why I'm using videos from other creators. The game barely runs. And it still gets worse. If you're thinking that, oh, surely it's normal for character models to have that many polygons, here's a side-by-side comparison of the Ink Demon from Bendy and Banban. Do you see the issue here? And you know what's funny? This is only an issue for the models that the Euphoric brothers themselves made, which is only like 3% of the models in the game. The other 97% is taken from asset stores. I have no problem with developers using pre-made assets, but I do have a problem when the entire game is made from them. I've used pre-made assets for my game, but if you were to take them out, there would still be a game. If you took the pre-made assets out of Banban, it would basically just be you, Opila, and a few walls and decals. Here's everything in Banban 1 that is a pre-made asset. Reception desk, office chair, couch, trash/garbage can, school cafeteria table, pen holder, bookshelf, rook chess piece, kids table chairs, wood picnic table, log, low poly dead tree, swing set, playground slide, fishing boat, low poly cardboard box prop, battery, office table, 90s computer, platform, whiteboard, low poly paper set, planks of wood, gap hammer, road sign, metal fence mid, metal fence end, metal fence broken, rechargeable battery, Soviet projector, TV, 70s tape recorder, music tape, red button, and the best for last, drone. Yes, the Banban drone is a pre-made asset. I'm disappointed, but also slightly relieved. Disappointed in the fact that instead of trying to make a unique drone for the game, the brothers just yoinked one off of Sketchfab, but also relieved in the point that had they made the drone themselves, it would have been like 2 million polygons or something ridiculous, and bumped the game's size up to 6 gigabytes instead of 4. And, you know, talking about all these pre-made assets actually makes a nice segue to the next part of this video. If I were to ask you what this image was meant to be depicting, most of you would probably say a restaurant. And if I were to add this camera UI on top of it, then you would probably say something along the lines of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria or the FNAF 1 location. Now, if I were to ask you what this image is meant to be depicting, you would probably say a city. But you would be wrong. This is a kindergarten, or more specifically, Banban's kindergarten. Don't believe me? If I go ahead and uncrop the image, you can now see the stupid drone remote I spent half of part 3 talking about, except now it has 2 antennas instead of 1 for some reason. This is one of Banban's main issues. The games are meant to take place in a kindergarten, and I don't know about you, but I haven't ever seen a kindergarten with an alien city, or a kingdom for a purple kangaroo, or a black void with a big worm sticking out of it, which, by the way, why the hell is there a giant worm? Apparently its name is Zolphius, and according to the lore guys, it's some Spanish dead child. Anyways, in no shape or form are any of these things even somewhat related to a kindergarten. The thing with FNAF is that it's easy to tell that it takes place in a pizzeria because the environments make sense for that location. And if you think I'm only comparing FNAF just to make Banban look bad, here's another non-horror example. If I were to ask you what this image was meant to be depicting, most of you would probably say some kind of laboratory, and you would be correct. This is Aperture Science from the Portal series, and you can very easily tell what it is because the environments make sense for that location. And just to appease the haters, here's an example from a less popular game. If I were to ask you what this image was meant to be depicting, most of you would probably say the interior of a car, and once again, you would be correct. This is from a newer horror game made, funnily enough, by the creator of Poppy Playtime, Isaac Christopherson. God, I totally butchered that, didn't I? Anyways, the point is that besides the first Banban game, practically none of the environments make any sense to be in a kindergarten. It doesn't help the devs keep on using all these pre-made assets, which just look so out of place in a game where the characters look like this. But speaking of the devs, let's finally talk about them, shall we? Because oh boy, there's a lot to say, and none of it is good. Believe it or not, Garten of Banban isn't actually the first game the Euphoric brothers have made. They've made 10 other non-Banban games, those games being Unplagued, Egghead Gumpty, Human Apocalypse Prologue, Fleshwater, Life on a Pizza, How We Got Here, He Needs His Medicine, Swallow the Blue, and Introvert, a Teenager Simulator. That one we'll talk about in a sec. Scrolling through the developer's Twitter page, they genuinely seem like nice people and that they do care about the games they are making, and honestly, some of the games actually look quite fun, which is why it baffles me so much that they pivoted so hard to just making the lazy cash grab games that are the Banban franchise. Now, all of this doesn't mean that they weren't free of controversy. Take their game, Introvert, a Teenager Simulator. What would you think this game is about? Maybe an RPG where you create your own teenager and explore the world. Maybe a game like The Sims where you simulate a bunch of teenagers. It is called Teenager Simulator after all. Or maybe since the game is called Introvert, a Teenager Simulator, it's a FNAF-like core game where you have to defend your house and keep people out. You know, typical introvert behavior. All of these would be valid guesses, and all of them would be wrong. Introvert, a Teenager Simulator, is a game where you get to play as a character named Mute, the quote-unquote best friend of another character named Chris, who ends up being a school shooter. Because obviously a school shooting is an accurate simulation of teenage life. What else would the game be about, you know? It's honestly disappointing to see. They take a very sensitive topic and then just try and cram as much terrible humor in it as possible. School shootings are nothing to joke about, and while I thankfully haven't experienced one, I know that it can be a traumatizing experience for people who have, which just makes it so stupid that the brothers would try and make a comedy-filled game about it. They market the game as something that, to directly quote from the Steam page, talks about serious issues such as bullying and suicidal thoughts in a new and different way that will hopefully be interpreted better by the new generation. But looking at the reviews for the game, they can't even do that right, and the Steam page description isn't free from the humor either. Quote again, I made this game because I was sad, so it took a while to be finished, because, you know, it's hard to work on something when you're sad. This is the official Steam page for the game. Why? I can understand making a game about sensitive topics. It's been done plenty of times before in games like My Eyes Deceive. But that game doesn't insert tons of unneeded humor. The small amounts of humor that are in the game help with the story. Therefore, it makes sense to have it in the game. The humor in Introvert, a Teenager Simulator is totally unneeded. Now, this isn't necessarily something that I'm going to continue to bring up in this video. I'm just pointing it out to show that the brothers have experienced controversy in the past and dealt with it, which, once again, makes their slight crash out over Banban so weird, especially when those games are total garbage compared to their first games. Now, if you don't know what crash out I'm referencing, allow me to point you to a tweet, because all good things come from Twitter, the Euphoric brothers made on March 10th of 2023. The tweet reads as follows: "There is a difference between criticizing/making fun of a game and outright scummy behavior. Regardless of what you think of a game, how pitiful is it to fully play it, then refund it, especially if you are streaming it and making many times the original price during the Steam." Can't even spell stream right. Okay. Attached to the tweet are 4 images of people refunding the second Garten of Banban. 3 YouTubers being, oh yeah, David Barron and Random Stuff Gaming, and then 1 random Steam user who, according to their review, received the game for free. If you're going to target people who are refunding your game, why target someone who didn't even pay for it in the first place? Now, once again, before I address the tweet itself, this will require a bit of context for those who don't know how Steam works. Steam has a refund policy that states if you have under 2 hours of playtime in a game and it has been less than 2 weeks since you purchased the game, you can get the game refunded. Now that everyone's caught up to speed, let's talk about this tweet. The Euphoric brothers point out how it is scummy and pitiful to refund a game after fully playing it. That is very much not the case. If someone manages to beat your game in under 2 hours, it is very reasonable for them to decide that the experience wasn't worth however much they paid for it and refund the game. It is scummy to charge $5 for a game that can be beaten in around an hour on a casual playthrough, and it is pitiful to complain about people using the Steam refund system on Twitter, a system that you knew existed when you published your game, yet still decided to charge money for it when it could be beaten in under 2 hours. Going on Twitter and attacking people for making a rational decision instead of thanking people who, for some ungodly reason, still support your game is A, going to hurt your reputation with those supportive fans, and B, going to tell people that haven't heard of your games that they aren't worth their time. Clearly, the developers realized that they needed to make games over 2 hours so that they could profit as much as possible, because every single Banban game after 2 has multiple sections that are made to deliberately waste your time. Remember how in part 2 I kept saying, oh, we'll talk about this later, or oh, we'll come back to this later? Well, later is now. The newer Banban games are full of these filler sections, which are designed to waste the player's time as much as possible, from making you do the same puzzle 3 times in a row, to opening like 20 doors in a row, to pushing whatever the hell this guy's name is super slowly down a hallway, to button chaining, to sitting and waiting for characters to stop yapping. The games are full of this shit. And if you look up the playtime lengths for all of the chapters, you'll notice that all of them, except for Banban 1 and 2, are at least 2 hours.
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory.
Yeah, right. I might be insane enough to make a 30-minute video on Banban, but I am not insane enough to talk about the insanity that is this game's lore. I am, however, apparently insane enough to say the word insane 5 times in the span of 15 seconds. Go watch a game theory or something if you really care. Alright, final stretch. I figured I'd try and end this video with some suggestions to the Euphoric brothers. Many people have made their videos talking about Banban, but almost none of those people were game developers. And so while the suggestions they gave the devs on how to improve were good, from a development standpoint, they didn't offer much. So that's what I'm going to try and do. Euphoric brothers, if you do somehow find this video, I hope you take these suggestions to heart. I know firsthand that game development is a difficult process. I've spent a year making a single game, but in that year, you guys have made like 6 Banban games. So the first piece of advice I'd like to give you is slow down. I know that somehow these games have a fan base, and I know you want to appease them, but you can still do that without releasing a game filled with, well, filler sections every 4 months. Poppy fans were left in the dark for over a year between Chapter 2 and 3, and while granted they did have a multiplayer game to chew on, that thing died faster than my will to live after writing this script. Anyways, you don't have to speedrun making games just to keep fans happy. If you slow down, you can actually make good games that are over 2 hours without filler sections. Shocking, I know. Will your fans be disappointed when they don't have a game every 4 months? At first, yes, But when those games do release every once in a while, they'll be good games and your fans will appreciate both them and you. You guys skipped Garten of Banban 5 for some reason, and you have a chance to make that game truly special if you just take your time with it. Another piece of advice. Please, for the love of God, optimize your f***ing models. I swear if Banban 8 or whatever has that 180,000 polygon mode, I'm going to lose it. And one last piece of advice. While other people making videos like this have said something similar, I'd like to repeat it because I think it's important. Don't let criticism get to you. You've shown through the tweet I brought up a bit ago that criticism can and has gotten to you. Instead of crashing out on Twitter, maybe listen to what people are saying and improve your games from that. Banban is far from a perfect game franchise, but it could become so much better if you just listen to people instead of hating on them for refunding your games. If people criticize Neum when it releases, I will listen to what they say and try to either update the game to fix what people are criticizing, or at least refrain from making those mistakes in any future games I make. And if I don't do that, please hold me accountable. And now, as I reach the 11th page in my script, oh my god! Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. And I will see you in the next video.